So before I start, I just wanted to tell you a little story. 13 years ago, I got married here in Vegas. At a Whitechapel. Mr. Merrick, I had 1998 Memphis, Tennessee Elvis of the Year singing. That's a big deal, okay? We probably hold a record for the longest marriage still for the Whitechapel. So I'm here to talk about the beautiful compromise. It's a theory I have. It's not burdened by facts. I'm a great believer of sometimes you have an idea, you don't let the numbers dictate the idea. Sometimes the idea creates new numbers and facts. So that's where I'm heading. It's a theory. Now at the end, I don't expect you to agree back. Hopefully you go, interesting. And let's see where we go from there. I am living the beautiful compromise. I was a successful ad guy in Asia. You know, I was the vice chairman and the chief creative officer for a large advertising network throughout Asia. So I did that, and I walked away from it about 2 years ago. So I wanted to do, you know, I wanted to spend time with my kids. I thought, if I don't spend time with them now, I'll spend time with them when they are in jail. So that's the compromise I had to make. Right? So what qualifies me to say this? So maybe it's a little bit on my background. So to help you understand, that's my full name, So Y An. Okay? And this is like how 1 billion over people are named. So my family name comes first. So Y is the generation name. So if I had a brother, I have a brother, my brother would be named So Y Ju. If I had another brother, it would be So Y something and on. And then An at the end is me. So I was brought up in a culture where the family comes first, then the generation, then you. You are last. Okay? In the greater scheme of things, you are last and the family always comes first. Now if you think back about your names, where you come from, some might be similar, you might be brought up the same way, might not be, but that was how we were brought up. Okay? So that led to this. I then left Singapore and then came to America to work. I worked in New York. I was recruited as one of the creative directors at Fallon in New York, which was arguably the best creative shop then. And I had to do the compromise then, because this is how I was brought up, but this is what New York is. This is in your DNA in America. If you make it here, you can make it anywhere. So the self comes first. So I had to do a switch. From me being the last to, I had to play your game, right? Because Sinatra didn't sing this song. Where I come from, kampong is village. So if your village can make it here, no, it wasn't about that. It's, can you make it here? If you make it here, you've made it. So I had to play that game. And the American game was no tie, sudden death, black or white, winner takes all. Right? That's why cricket isn't big here in America. In cricket, you could play 5 days and there's a tie. And that will drive you nuts. Because you're like, oh my God, there's no revenge. And revenge will be a year later and there's no guarantee you win. So you go through 10 years of like, oh my God. So that kind of, but that's your game. And that's cool. That's in your DNA. That's what made America great. As a result, you live a life of extremes. You're either on one side, and that's how sometimes we see things. On one side, you're a careless consumerist with no conscience. And then on the other side, on the other extreme, you're a unshaven, unwashed, hairy armpit, tree-hugging environmentalist. But you can't be kind of, it's either or. So you live a life of extremes. Or we see the world a life of extremes. As a result, this happens. And we, in our own way, find it all right. It's okay. And we find reasons for that. But that kind of is what drives it to this place. And that's the theory that I was hoping to get to about the beautiful compromise. Now, my friend, John Gersma, he wrote this, The Athena Doctrine, New York bestseller. So it's research. I won't go through all the details. It's research around the world. Buy the book. Everything's in there. There is too much power in the hands of large institutions and corporations. A lot of people agree. Is that true? I think in our guts we think it's true, because if the corporations really cared about you, the customer, they wouldn't be putting horse meat in your beef, would they? Right? And then my country cares about citizens more than it used to. 76% disagree. Because countries are now run like companies. The GDP comes first. So you had a conversation between the corporate guy and the country guy, and the country guy goes, this is good for my citizens, and then the guy goes, yeah, but if you do this, this is good for your GDP. Who do you think will win? As a result, the world becomes less fair. And the last point was interesting. The world would be a better place if men thought more like women. It's kind of true. If you were a corporate raider, you called your mother up and go, look, Mom, I'm going to buy this company. It's going to be $1 billion. I'm going to strip it, take away all the pensions, fire everyone, and I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to make $2 billion. What would your mother say? Yeah. Unless your mother's Donald Trump's mother, and then she'll go, $2 billion? What? $2 billion only? So the 20th century industrial age is about the I. The I is the short term, right? So I don't know about you, this is my life. The first 10 years, maybe even up to 20, I spent the first 10 to 20 years peeing in my pants and making a fool of myself. Right? Then you become and you create something for the next 40 years. In the last 10 years of your life, you're peeing in your pants and making a fool of yourself. Okay? So that's the truth. So you think about the I as in, here's the 40 years that I have. What can I do to make the best out of it? And then you think a little bit about your children, but not beyond. So everything's short-term thinking, so to speak. But we're all living the beautiful compromise, whether we like it or not. Okay? Democracy, that's the biggest compromise we've had. I mean, the Greeks were onto a good thing maybe 2,000 years ago, but democracy probably really needed servers to make it work, and it seems to be working better on the internet. I do. Who's married here? Who was married here? Who's not going to get married after listening to this? Marriage is the biggest compromise. Then the power, it's up to you. Do you want to make it a miserable compromise, or do you want to make it a beautiful compromise? But you have to accept it's going to be a compromise. Birth and death. If you take away all religions, set that all aside, at the end of it, when we are born, we will die. And that's a compromise. Okay? So when you start thinking, and maybe I had a lot of time after I left my job, I was thinking about this, you know, it kind of goes, okay, that's how we live and that's how we approach things. Then let's look at Darwin. Darwin said this. I mean, he was misquoted a lot of times. Strongest of the species will survive, or the most intelligent, or the fittest. Actually, what he said was the most adaptable species to change is the one that will survive. So we are all adaptable. Because life is never a linear path. We have to go and adapt to it. And then there was research here that says selfish traits are favored by evolution, study shows. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Again, I'm in America, so I'm going to be politically correct, if you believe in evolution. But it is true. I mean, imagine here's this jungle, and the pink flamingos going like, look, global warming. I think my feather, I'm going to turn it white. I'm not going to stand on 1 foot. I'm going to stand on 2 feet. I'm going to now be swimming underwater a bit because the fishes will be swimming lower and deeper because it's hotter, right? Then the polar bear, the Arctic polar bear is going to go, you know this white coat, maybe a bit brown because the white stuff will be melting. I'll have to blend in. So everyone's making all these compromises. And then the lion just goes, you know, I'm not going to change. I'm just going to eat all of you. All. I'm not going to change. Then everyone else is going, if he's not changing, I'm not changing. No one changes. Everyone dies. Okay? At the end of it is the cockroach. The cockroach is looking at everything, and the cockroach is going like, I've never tried lion before. Well, okay, I'm willing to try. Because the cockroach will live. He's the most adaptable. So then we flip forward and we talk about the 21st century. And I'm making a bold statement. I'm calling it Generation We, Generation Us. If you come up with a better name, I'm all for it. It just means we're all into this together. And the internet connects all of us. Global city, all that cliches all come to play, right? And this is how we live. We give a little, but we get a lot. I give you a little bit of my data, I get free email, etc., etc. Right? And a lot of us get away with not paying stuff. That's why You know, we find it sometimes quite hard to sell our apps, but that's how we live. And we live in this collaborative and cooperative world. I give a little bit of my Wi-Fi here, but when I travel, I get Wi-Fi from other people. So that makes us all this bigger generation, bigger village, and all the business models kind of revolve around that. Online behavior now becomes offline behavior. So how we live online, we spend 4 or 5 hours, naturally it's going to take you into your offline world, right? And you see this increasingly more prevalent as the internet becomes more embedded and how it goes into other countries, other villages. You see their behavior spread from online to offline. So let's test this out. There's the beautiful compromise work here. So all these names are stuff that you find on the internet. Is it the sharing economy? So can the sharing economy work in a winner-takes-all model? Can collaboration work winner-takes-all? Can empathy economy work winner-takes-all? And all that. I put the marriage economy there because that's that kind of ties back to my marriage. As a result, you have to shift. You shift from a management style of control, and it's not from, just from to, you might have to do a from and then to a to. So there needs to be a little transition. So do you move from control to empowerment? Do you move shareholder CEO, where your focus is on them, to customer and employee? So like Zappos is about the culture. That's what it is. Do you make it exclusive to inclusive? Because that's how we live. Remember, we talked about online to offline. Is it about me, winner takes all, or is it about winner, all of us being winners, the ecosystem? And maybe some of us win more than the others, okay? And do you say versus do? So I come from the advertising world, that's a big problem. We say the brands behave this way, but actually the people want, I don't want you to tell me what you are. I don't trust you, there's no transparency, no accountability. I want you to behave like the way you say you are. So do something. And that's troubling. In the advertising world, this is the problem. You go to Netflix and Hulu, you're willing to pay the premium not to see ads. So what kind of business is there for an ad industry where people pay not to see your stuff? Kind of odd. And then the last one is about education. And I think it applies to it. And I have 2 young kids, and that's kind of my mantra. You know, in the old days, in the 20th century business model, we were told, jack of all trades, master of none. You've got to be specialized. You've got to know the one thing. I think in the empower economy, that collaborative economy and all that, you have to be jack of all trades and master of one. You have to be a specialist and a generalist. You have to, because everyone's getting smarter. So we have to move from winner takes all to winner takes more. Okay, you still have to take more. You have to be rewarded for it. But you have to share the rest. That keeps the ecosystem growing. I was brought up in a culture where when you eat, you never take the last piece of food. You always leave some food on the plate for someone, for the guest. And that keeps the ecosystem going. And it leads to this, you know, spring, there's Turkish spring, Arab spring, spring rolls, everything, right? That's happening around the world. You have social income inequality, that we all know. But there's intellectual equality. We're all smarter. We're all smarter than we think we are. And it doesn't matter whether they think I am, but I think I am smarter. There's so much more knowledge available out there. There's Moore's law, which is, you know, the doubling of computing power. But there's the Flynn effect. The Flynn effect measures the incremental increase in your intelligence. It's not exponential like Moore's law, but it's, or geometric like Moore's law. Is incremental. So imagine the amount of knowledge that you learned last year, you think, wow, I've learned so much more this year. So apply that down the line to kids, to young people, and you have that. You have this injustice where they go, I'm smart, why should I suffer from unequal income and this social inequality? And then at the end of it, 50% of the world now live in cities, and cities are more progressive. The values and the thought process, and they're all internet enabled. So that's just going to push, and that's why all the spring stuff, they happen in cities. They don't happen in rural areas. Unless you're French, and then you're upset with the laws, then you dump your sheep and your eggs all over, you know, then that's different. So it leads to a natural demand for what's fair. Again, it's a feeling, but I'm looking at it, and you look at all the businesses and the ideas that come out, most of them go, okay, let's try to address some of the injustice, make it fair. There is a movement for greater good. People want to be good because they see here's this ecosystem. Of course, if I was evil, then I'll promote the greater evil, you know. But let's stick with good for the time being. And then good becomes contagious because there's a natural demand, people want to be part of it. So when you start looking at ideas and what to invest in or ideas to come up with, you start thinking, if you start thinking this way, it, I think, leads you to a better place. And some of the values that you throw the ideas and measure against, you go, yeah, that seems to be what people want. And that leads to exponential growth. We do live in an exponential environment. So you look at companies, you know, from Bose, Waze, Airbnb, Kickstarter, even old brick and mortar company like Nike, there was a little exponential blip even in the curve because they launched Nike Plus. It's a social running. It brings people together. It's good. It lets you connect. There's collaboration, etc., etc. Apple, yeah. Let's see what comes out next in September, because if it's the same thing, the online behavior is such that we're also less loyal. We'll drop it quite quickly. Okay, so there always is this demand for it. And then there's urban farming. I'm doing a lot of it. I think that's going to be big because if 50% of the world live in cities, the rest of the 50% aren't farming. So you got to take some of the responsibility, and the compromise has to be, just because I live in the city, I don't farm. No, you've got to. And the amazing thing is I see my kids grow up a little bit more connected to nature. They go, I know where stuff comes from, so I know what to eat and all. So I think that's big, unless you're happy to have Monsanto do all your farming for you. So the beautiful compromise is about balance between the earth and us. It's about nature and business, present and future. It's about shared destiny, not either or, but and. It stands for what's good for all of us, and it stands for the people. Okay? And the beautiful compromise is about moderating your excesses, not being excessively moderate. So I'm here in Vegas. I'll drink and eat non-stop for 4 days. I'll go back home. I'll have 4 days of colonic irrigation. So that's the beautiful part. Okay, but it's not hard. I look at my son, I tell him, you can be this naughty if you're this good. But if you expect him to be this good all the time, never naughty, look, there's going to be a problem. So let's accept that and embrace it, but give him, I'm not saying compromise and be wishy-washy, I'm saying, yeah, be a bit this, or be so don't be the tree hugger all the way, but sure, be environmentally correct. Don't just keep buying stuff. Let's come and not meet in the middle, but meet more on this side, nearer the tree. Because if nature dies, we all die. Okay, so I'm here to blame America. You did give us Gordon Gekko. Greed is good. And okay, look, it drove the world, and it was good for that time. But it also did lead to this financial collapse. And this, we all have to address our values and all. The good news is you can lead again. The marvelous thing about America, and I've worked here, so I know, there's a spirit, there's the values, there's the determination and the drive. You can bring it out. The question is, how are you going to approach this? Okay? How can you lead again? Do you want to do it all on your own, as you've done before? Winner takes all. Because this, I'll just pick it up from Asia, just a few facts where I come from. Asia is 4.4 billion people. Just Southeast Asia alone is 600 million. China will be the largest speaking English country in 4 years. Okay? 25% of the smartest people in India is more than all. USA, Asia produces 10 times. It's all online. So you know, you can't fight that, right? Over 50 million handsets are just sold in India. So the Indians are skipping the laptops and going straight into mobile. China censors 100 million tweets. So how many tweets did you get to censor 100 million? Okay. 2 casinos in Singapore make more than Vegas. Not something to be proud of, but that just gives you the value and the scale of things. And developed cities like Singapore now are going, okay, you know what? IP protection, here's startup, here's these things to try to develop other industries to lead you on. Indonesia's middle class, 140 million. So do you embrace them? Do you collaborate with them? Do you harness all the energy? Do you come up with, do you look for ideas there? If you're a VC, look for ideas there, see what's applicable, and then see what could be big and global, and then take it over here. You know, do you outsource? A lot of you do outsource a lot of your work out there. But there's a potential to harness. And when you do that, and you have this philosophy, and you come up with these ideas, you will lead again, and you take the world along. You've already been doing it. There have been great ideas coming out. I just think you have this thing called Asia there. There's a great opportunity from an intellectual point of view. People are smarter. Okay? My son, who is 10, he goes to hypochondriac.com or doctor.com, find out his symptoms, sees the doctor, tells the doctor what the symptoms are and the diagnosis. Okay? He's like Chinese Woody Allen. And Jewish. And I like to end with that, on that note, right? And this is what you expect a 16-year-old boy to tell you. But when he was 6, he said, "Dad, don't say no to me. Let me live a little." And that's the beautiful compromise, right? Maybe the beautiful compromise is we all can live a little. Maybe we can all just be a little bit more human. Thank you very much. If you like a copy of this, email to me, and I'll send it to you. If you want to make it better, make it better. Thank you very much.